She stumbled barefoot through the wet grass, the hem of her white sundress clinging to her knees, her breath ragged, her mind blank. The world around her was spinning in shades of gray and gold, the morning sun struggling to pierce through the mist that hung thick in the air. She didn't know who she was, not her name, not where she came from, not even why her heart felt like it had just shattered into 1,000 aching pieces. All she remembered was a kiss, a single, searing kiss that had ignited something so fierce. And raw in her soul, it consumed everything else. The memory was vague, like a dream half remembered, yet her lips still tingled with the imprint of it. A man's face, shadowed, intense, floated in her mind's eye, but each time she tried to focus on the details, they slipped away like water through her fingers. A car screeched to a halt behind her on the gravel road, and she turned, startled, her body reacting with fear. She couldn't explain. A young man in a worn flannel shirt and jeans jumped out. His eyes widened the moment he saw her. "It's you," he whispered, his voice hoarse with disbelief. "Oh my God, you're alive." She blinked, backing away. "Do I know you?" He stepped closer slowly, as if afraid to spook her. "Sofia, it's me, Theo. Don't you remember anything?" She swallowed hard. I don't know who I am." His face crumpled in agony. "You disappeared 3 weeks ago. They thought you were dead. I don't even know my name," she said, her voice barely a breath. He closed the distance between them and gently took her hand. "Come with me. Let me help you remember." Something in his touch felt familiar, warm, safe, but she couldn't be sure if it was trust or desperation that made her follow him into his old pickup truck. As they drove through winding roads and sleepy towns, Theo spoke in fragments of their past, how they met in college, how she was the girl from a powerful political family and he was just the son of a mechanic, how their love had been forbidden, secret, and electric, how they had planned to run away together the night she vanished. "Why would I run?" she asked, watching trees blur past the window. "Because your father found out about us. He threatened me. He threatened you. You said you didn't care. You said you loved me." Her throat tightened. "And this kiss. I remember." His hands clenched the steering wheel. "That was the last time I saw you. Right before you got into your car and disappeared." The pieces didn't fit, but they clinked like shards of a broken mirror, ready to be reassembled. Theo took her to a small cabin in the woods, where photos lined the walls, pictures of them laughing, kissing, dancing in the kitchen. She stared at her own face, young and radiant, curled against him in snapshot after snapshot. "Why do I feel like I'm looking at someone else's life?" she murmured. "Because someone took yours," Theo said darkly. "And we're going to find out who." Over the next few days, fragments returned. The scent of his skin, the feeling of his arms around her in the dark, the way he whispered her name. But so did the fear, the shadows in her mind, the sense that someone was watching. One night, as they stood under the stars, Theo kissed her soft and slow. Her body responded instinctively, like muscle memory wrapped in longing. For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Then everything came rushing back. Pain, blood, screams, and a face, a different man's face, smiling as she begged for mercy. She pulled away, gasping. There was someone else, someone dangerous. Theo's eyes hardened. "Who?" She shook her head, trembling. "I don't know, but he kissed me too. And that kiss made me forget everything." Theo stared at her, his jaw clenched. "Then we need to find him, before he finds you again." The next morning, the cabin was ransacked. Every photo, every trace of their past destroyed. And scrawled across the broken mirror in blood-red paint were the words, "One kiss wasn't enough." They stood in the ruins of the cabin, the smell of smoke and fear thick in the air. Sofia's heart pounded so violently she thought it might shatter her chest. The red words smeared across the mirror bled into her vision. One kiss wasn't enough. She backed away, clutching Theo's arm like it was the only thing tethering her to reality. Theo's eyes scanned the room, dark and calculating, not just with fear but rage. "He was here," he growled. "He knows you remember something." "But I don't," Sofia whispered. "Not really. It's like my mind's been hacked. Someone went in and erased everything, and now it's all jagged flashes and feelings." Theo pulled her close, protectively. "Whoever did this, he's not going to stop. Not until he finishes what he started. I need to know who he is," she said, her voice low. "I need to remember before he finds me again." Theo didn't answer, but his grip on her hand tightened. They left the cabin behind, the the woods eerily quiet as if nature itself were holding its breath. Theo took her deeper into the town's forgotten corners, to people he trusted: his old professor, a retired private investigator who once specialized in memory retrieval, and a woman named Mara who had been Sofia's best friend before everything unraveled. Mara's reaction was visceral the moment she saw Sofia: tears, shaking hands, a desperate hug. "You were the strongest person I knew," she whispered. "And then you disappeared." "Do you know who I was with?" Sofia asked. "Before I lost everything?" Mara hesitated, glancing at Theo. "There were rumors. People saw you meeting someone late at night, someone your father didn't want anyone to know about. A man connected to your family's political rivals. Dangerous people. There was talk of blackmail. And the kiss?" Sofia pressed. That memory. Mara went pale. "If you're remembering a kiss, then that means he got close to you. Closer than anyone should have." That night, as Sofia lay curled beside Theo in a borrowed apartment above the garage of his father's old shop, she stared at the ceiling, haunted by the sensation of lips on hers. It wasn't like Theo's kiss. This one had felt wrong, hungry, possessive. The memory surfaced in flashes: rough hands, whispered threats, a dark hallway, and a man with icy blue eyes and a crescent-shaped scar at his temple. She jolted upright. "I saw him," she gasped. "He had a scar, right here." She touched her own temple. "Theo, do you know who that could be?" Theo's face went stone cold. "Yeah, I do." He stood up, muscles tensed. "Nolan Carrick, the son of your father's biggest enemy. He used to hang around town before his family's empire collapsed. Rumor was, he got into the kind of business that doesn't leave scars just on your face." "Why would he kiss me?" "Because he wanted to own you," Theo said bitterly. "To erase me, to control you. And maybe your father made a deal with him." The idea twisted Sofia's stomach into knots. Her father, always cold, calculating, had he really given her away like a pawn? And was that why she ran? She and Theo began digging, following the faintest threads through dusty files, burner phones, and whispered warnings. Each clue brought them closer to the truth and to danger. They weren't alone anymore. Sofia felt eyes on her everywhere they went. One night, returning from a lead, they found the apartment door ajar. Inside, the investigator who had been helping them was slumped in a chair, unmoving, blood trailing from his ear. On the wall above him was a photograph. Her, Nolan, her eyes wide, lips parted. He was kissing her, and she wasn't pulling away. She dropped the photo, shaking. "I wanted it," she choked. "I kissed him back." "You were drugged," Theo said immediately. "Manipulated." "That's not you." "But what if it is?" she whispered. "What if I'm not who I think I am? What if I was working with him?" "No," Theo said fiercely. "I don't care what happened. I know who you are." "You don't," she said. "I don't even know." She ran into the night, needing air, space, distance. But the moment she stepped into the alley, she felt it, a presence. A shadow peeled off from the brick wall. Cold blue eyes, a voice like a blade against silk. "I told you, one kiss wasn't enough." Then everything went black. Pain dragged her awake like a tide pulling her from the depths. Sofia's eyes fluttered open, and all she saw at first was darkness, complete and suffocating. Her wrists were bound to the arms of a metal chair, and the air reeked of damp concrete, rust, and something else. Something sweet and rotten. Panic surged, but it was slow and foggy, as though her mind was swimming through molasses. "Easy now," came a voice from the shadows. A voice she knew. A voice her nightmares had been whispering. Nolan Carrick stepped forward, the overhead light flickering to life behind him. The crescent-shaped scar on his temple glinted like a signature, his eyes crystalline and unreadable. He knelt before her, placing a hand on her knee. "You remember now, don't you?" he said, smiling gently like a lover returning from war. "Pieces," Sofia managed to croak. "Just pieces. That's how the mind protects itself," he said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But protection is just another form of denial, and you've denied me long enough." Her body recoiled, but the chair held her fast. "Why me?" she whispered. "What did you do to me?" He laughed softly, leaning in until his lips were at her ear. "I gave you what you asked for. Freedom, escape, oblivion. You were drowning, Sofia, drowning in your father's lies, in your shame for loving someone beneath you. You came to me. You asked me to erase everything. That's not true. You don't remember," he said, standing again. You begged me to do it. One kiss, one chemical trigger, one moment of submission, and your old life was gone. Her head throbbed. You drugged me. You wanted it. He turned his back to her, pulling open a small cabinet, revealing vials, syringes, documents, photographs, tools of manipulation. You were mine, and you still are. You can't make me forget again, she said through gritted teeth. I am remembering. I know, he said. That's why we're here. This time, I won't make the same mistake. Footsteps echoed. Another man appeared, a tall, broad figure with a gun slung at his hip. They're looking for her. The mechanic's kid. He's getting close. Let him come, Nolan said coldly. It's time he saw what she really is. Meanwhile, Theo was tearing through every lead he had. He'd found the apartment empty, the photo gone, blood wiped clean, but he'd noticed the faint imprint of her necklace in the dust. She had fought. She had been taken. Now, with only his father's old contacts in the police force and a gut full of fury, he tracked down Nolan's last known location, an abandoned estate at the edge of town once owned by the Carricks. There, in the woods, he found tire tracks, a torn piece of Sofia's dress, and a quiet hunter's trail that led to a rusted-out hatch beneath a burned-out shed. Underground, Sofia had begun her own escape. Her wrists bled from the zip ties she'd slowly frayed against the chair's sharp edge. She played along with Nolan's delusions, nodding, whispering agreement, luring him in closer each time he monologued about their twisted connection. When the moment came, she acted, slamming her forehead into his nose, snatching the syringe from his hand, and stabbing it into the guard's neck. Chaos erupted. Nolan screamed, blood pouring from his face, and Sofia ran barefoot, dizzy, but free. She reached the corridor just as Theo burst through the door, gun in hand. Sofia, Theo. They collided in an embrace that said everything their mouths couldn't. We need to go, she panted. He's still. A shot rang out. Theo jerked back, a bloom of red on his side. No, she screamed. Nolan stood at the far end of the hallway, bloodied but grinning. You see, he's always in the way. Sofia grabbed the gun from Theo's hand as he collapsed and turned it on Nolan, but her fingers trembled. He stepped closer. You won't shoot me. You know why? Because I'm not like you, she whispered. Exactly. He smiled, eyes gleaming. But I am part of you now, forever. She pulled the trigger. Once, twice, 3 times. He fell. She ran to Theo, clutching him as he bled out in her arms. Don't you dare leave me, she begged, sobbing. You found me. You always find me. You remembered me, he whispered. Every time. His eyes fluttered shut. Sirens wailed in the distance. Help was coming. But Sofia wasn't sure she would ever feel saved again. The hospital room buzzed with quiet urgency, beeping monitors, shuffling nurses, the muted murmur of life and death on opposite ends of the same corridor. Sofia sat motionless in the chair beside Theo's bed, her hands wrapped tightly around his. He was alive, but barely. After hours of surgery, the doctors had managed to stop the internal bleeding. Now he lay still, pale as the sheets that covered him, with a ventilator hissing softly in rhythm with the rise and fall of his chest. She hadn't left his side in days. Not since she shot Nolan. Not since the police dragged her away in a daze of blood and adrenaline, only to release her with wide eyes once they saw the surveillance footage recovered from Nolan's hidden lair. Footage that confirmed everything. The manipulation, the drugs, the torture. Her father hadn't come to the hospital. He hadn't even called. It was Mara who brought her clean clothes and food she didn't touch, who silently sat with her when grief cracked through her resolve. Like fault lines. He'll wake up, Mara whispered one night, gently brushing a lock of hair from Theo's forehead. He has to. He came for me, Sofia said, her voice hollow. When I didn't even know who I was, he still came for me. That's love, Mara said simply. The kind that doesn't disappear even when everything else does. But the love Sofia had rediscovered didn't come without weight. As she sat in that sterile room, the memories came back in sharper fragments. Nolan whispering in her ear. Her father's voice, cool and precise, telling her she had to end things with Theo. A contract signed in bloodless ink. Nolan standing in her father's office, shaking hands. The memory hit like ice. He sold me. Her father had traded her to Nolan like a bargaining chip, a living weapon in a political war. In exchange, the Carricks had agreed to publicly withdraw damaging allegations against her family, allegations tied to money laundering, campaign fraud, and more. She wasn't just a pawn. She had been the prize. Sofia stood abruptly and left Theo's room without a word. She had been a victim for too long. Now, she needed answers. And revenge. She confronted her father 2 days later in his mahogany-clad study, where sunlight filtered through expensive blinds and everything smelled like leather and ego. "You knew," she said, her voice deadly calm. "You handed me to him." Her father didn't flinch. "You were out of control, falling in love with that boy. You didn't understand the implications. So you let a psychopath drug me and erase my mind? You're alive. You're back. That's all that matters now." "Not to me," she said. "I'm pressing charges. I'm going to the press. I'm burning every piece of your legacy down." His expression turned venomous. "You'd destroy everything we built just for some mechanic?" "No," she said, stepping closer. "I'd destroy it for me, for the girl who thought she had no power, for the woman who finally remembered who she was." She walked out, heart racing, but head high. And just as she reached the front steps, her phone buzzed. "Theo's awake." She ran like the world had narrowed to a single breath. When she burst into the hospital room, he was sitting up, his eyes half lidded but shining. "Hey," he rasped. "You came back." "I never left," she whispered, tears rushing down her face. She kissed him slow, fierce, desperate, and this time, there was no fog, no confusion, no fear, only memory, only love. Later, when he was stronger, she told him everything. Her father, Nolan, the betrayal. Theo listened, jaw clenched, but didn't interrupt. "We need to leave," he said. "Start over, somewhere quiet, somewhere far." "We will," she said, "but not yet. First, I'm going to take the stand. I'm going to tell the world what he did to me." "And after?" he asked. "After," she said, threading her fingers through his, "we start a life no one can erase." But even as they planned a future, a shadow stirred. In a darkened prison cell, Nolan Carrick sat cross-legged, his face lit by the flickering television in the corner. The news anchor was reporting her story. Sofia Ashburn, political heiress, survivor of psychological torture, preparing to testify against her father. Nolan smiled, slow and sure. He leaned toward the camera in the ceiling and whispered, "She still remembers me. She has to. Because if she didn't, she wouldn't be dreaming about me every night." Then he laughed, quiet, certain, and waiting. The courtroom was packed, humming with tension. Reporters lined the aisles, their pens poised and cameras flashing like anxious hearts. The name Sofia Ashburn had become a national obsession, America's lost daughter who had returned with a vengeance. She sat straight-backed on the witness stand, dressed simply in black, her hands folded in her lap to hide the trembling she refused to show. Across from her, her father sat at the defense table, flanked by his high-priced lawyers, stone-faced and silent. For years, he had curated the image of a stoic patriot, a protector of American values. But now, the truth was ready to burn through that illusion like acid. "The defendant," she said clearly, "is not just my father. He's a man who sold me his own daughter to a known criminal to preserve his political reputation. I was 23, I was in love, and I was a threat to his empire." Her voice didn't break, not once. As she spoke, flashes of Nolan's touch, the hollow nights in his lair, and Theo's blood on her hands flickered behind her eyes. But she didn't falter. She detailed everything: the manipulation, the drugs, the threats. She submitted the recovered footage, the documents Mara had helped her retrieve, the signed agreements that proved her father had negotiated with the Carricks. Every word she spoke landed like a hammer on the glass pedestal he had spent his life building. When it was over, she stepped down from the stand to stunned silence. Outside, protesters and supporters alike swarmed the courthouse, their chants echoing her name. She didn't care about the noise. She only cared about Theo waiting in a wheelchair at the bottom of the courthouse steps, his hand extended. She took it without hesitation, anchoring herself in the only truth that had never wavered. "You did it," he said softly, squeezing her fingers. "You made them see. It's not over yet," she murmured, "but it's finally starting." That night, they returned to their temporary hideaway, an old farmhouse outside the city, gifted by Mara's aunt. It smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. They sat on the porch under a sky washed in stars, Theo's head resting gently against her shoulder. "Do you think he'll be convicted?" he asked. "My father?" She sighed. "He will. The jury saw him today for what he is. But it's not the conviction that matters most, it's that people know that I'm not afraid anymore. And Nolan? His name was a shadow between them, coiling into every quiet moment. He's behind bars, she said. He won't get out. You don't believe that, Theo said, studying her face. Do you? Her silence was answer enough, because Nolan had found a way into her dreams. Some nights, she woke gasping, soaked in sweat, his voice in her ear. You came to me. You wanted to forget. You begged me to kiss you again. And worst of all, a part of her remembered wanting it. That part, manipulated, broken, still lived in her. Still whispered questions she was too afraid to answer. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address, no stamp, just her name, handwritten in red ink. Theo tried to stop her from opening it, but she had to. Inside was a single Polaroid, her, asleep in bed, bathed in moonlight. And beneath it, scrawled in the same ink, one kiss woke you up. The next one will break you. Theo called the police immediately. They launched an investigation, increased her security, questioned prison staff. But Nolan hadn't left his cell. The cameras confirmed it. The guards swore he hadn't moved. It's impossible, one detective told them, unless he has help. And that was when everything shattered again. That night, the farmhouse lights cut out without warning. Power gone, phones dead. Outside, the wind howled like it was mourning something already lost. Theo grabbed the pistol from the drawer and pulled Sofia behind him. They moved quietly through the house, every creak of the floorboards a threat. Then they saw it on the kitchen wall, in fresh, wet paint. He's still inside you. A crash upstairs. Sofia ran before Theo could stop her, heart hammering. She threw open the bedroom door. The mirror had been shattered, and carved into the wall was something sharp and cruel. You never stopped wanting me. Theo found her shaking. He's in your head, Sofia, he said. That's all. He's not here. He can't be. But what if he is? She whispered. What if that's the part of me I can't erase? She didn't sleep that night, nor the next. The dreams returned darker, more vivid. In them, Nolan sat beside her, brushing her hair back, whispering lullabies in a language only she seemed to understand. Theo watched her slip further from him with every restless dawn. And then she was gone. He woke up one morning to find the house empty, her phone left behind on the porch. No note, no goodbye. Across the city, Sofia stood outside the prison walls, eyes locked on the barbed wire fence. Inside, Nolan Carrick waited, not in chains, not in a cell, but seated calmly in a private room, like a guest expecting company. As the door buzzed open, he looked up with a smile. I knew you'd come. And Sofia stepped inside, not because she trusted him, not because she forgave him, but because some part of her needed to know why a kiss had been enough to erase her past and whether another might erase everything that came after. The room was colder than she expected. White walls, no windows, a single metal table bolted to the floor. Nolan sat behind it, hands unshackled, posture relaxed, as though this were a reunion between old lovers and not a confrontation between captor and survivor. Sofia stood in the doorway for a long moment, her pulse pounding in her throat. The guard behind her cleared his throat, but she raised a hand to stop him. I'm fine, she murmured. She wasn't, and Nolan knew it. He smiled, slow and deliberate, eyes raking over her like he was taking inventory of his work. I was beginning to think you didn't care anymore. I don't, she said, stepping into the room. I care about closure. Closure, he repeated with a laugh. No one who comes looking for closure ever really wants it. What they want is permission, to hate, to forgive, to remember. She sat across from him, her every nerve screaming to flee, to run back into the safety of Theo's arms and the lie of normalcy they'd tried to build. But she couldn't, not until she understood why a single kiss had unspooled her life. Tell me the truth, she said. All of it. What you did to me. Why? Nolan tilted his head as though amused by her demand. You really want the truth, Sofia? You asked me once to take your pain away, and I did. Not because I loved you not at first, but because you were so beautifully broken. I gave you what no one else would. You drugged me. You manipulated my memories. You rewrote me. Because you let me. Because you were desperate to forget the life your father built around you. The fake smiles, the arranged engagements, the decisions made behind closed doors. You were suffocating, and I was oxygen. Her stomach twisted, because part of it was true. Before the horror, Before the darkness, there had been a moment. One moment, where she'd been lost and angry and ready to destroy everything. And Nolan had been there, offering escape. But you didn't stop, she whispered. You could have let me go. I never let go of what's mine. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. But you're not mine anymore, are you? Not since he came back. Theo saved me. No, Nolan said quietly. He reminded you, but he didn't save you. You saved yourself. Because deep down, you're not the girl your father raised or the victim I crafted. You're something else, something in between. The door behind her buzzed. Her time was up. She stood. I came here hoping I'd understand what you did, but I think I already did. You didn't break me. You revealed me. Nolan's smile didn't waver. Then you should thank me. I'll thank you, she said, stepping to the door. When they bury you so deep no one remembers your name, he laughed. I'll always live inside you, Sofia. One kiss made sure of that. As the door slammed shut, she felt the tremor pass through her, not fear, not weakness, but clarity. She returned home to find Theo standing at the sink, his back tense. He turned the second she walked in. Where were you? I had to finish something, she said. He's not going to haunt me anymore. Not in my dreams. Not in my choices. You sure about that? Theo asked, voice low. Because sometimes I see you slip away from me. Like he's still in there. He might be, she admitted. But so are you. And I choose you. Every time. They held each other long into the night, tangled in silence and memory, in healing that was jagged and real. But just as dawn touched the horizon, the phone rang. A prison break. 3 dead guards. 2 inmates missing. One of them was Nolan Carrick. And in Sofia's inbox, a single message waited. One kiss started your story. Let's see how it ends. The message echoed in her mind like a war drum. One kiss started your story. Let's see how it ends. Sofia stared at the screen until the words blurred, her breath shallow, the air thick with dread. Theo stood behind her, reading over her shoulder, silent for a moment that lasted forever. Then softly, like a man preparing for battle, he asked, when was it sent? Just now, she said, her voice a whisper. He's out, Theo. He's coming. Within hours, their quiet farmhouse became a fortress. Police cars lined the gravel drive. Agents from the Department of Justice and the FBI roamed the property, setting up equipment, securing windows, and mapping out escape routes. Everyone wanted to protect her, but none of them really understood what they were up against. Nolan wasn't just a fugitive. He was a ghost with a scalpel for a mind, a man who turned memories into weapons. They placed her under protective custody, locked down communications, moved her and Theo to a secure safe house outside the city. It was hidden in the mountains, accessible only by helicopter or an unmarked dirt road. But isolation offered no peace. Her dreams grew darker. She saw Nolan in reflections, in shadows, in moments when the room was too quiet. He didn't speak in them anymore. He smiled, always smiling, like he was already here. Then one morning, she woke to find Theo gone. His clothes, his phone, his gun. A note rested on her nightstand. He called me. I need to finish this before he gets to you. Don't follow me. Panic surged. No, she whispered. Not again. She raced to the agents, but none of them had seen him leave. He had vanished into thin air. She tried to retrace his steps, begged Mara to help her track his phone, scoured Theo's notebooks. She found a single clue in the margin of a page he'd scribbled weeks ago. Belridge Quarry. It was an abandoned mine just outside the state border somewhere Nolan's family had once owned as part of their illegal mining empire. Sofia left that night with nothing but a pistol, a flashlight, and a storm in her chest. The quarry was a jagged scar in the earth, black and silent under the moonlight. Her boots crunched over broken gravel as she descended into the ruins. The air was cold, damp, and thick with old secrets. Then she heard voices. She followed them to an underground shaft lit by weak lanterns strung from rusted beams. Theo stood near the edge of a drop-off, gun in hand, his face drawn with fury and fear. Nolan stood across from him, hands raised casually, as if surrendering to a joke. Only he understood. You came alone, Nolan said, grinning. That's almost romantic. Theo's jaw tightened. You don't get to speak her name. But I will, Nolan said. Because she's still listening. She always will be. Stop. Sofia's voice cut through the cavern like a blade. Both men turned as she emerged from the shadows. Theo's eyes widened. Sofia, no, you shouldn't be here. She has to be. Nolan said. This is about her. It always was. You wanted to break me, she said, stepping forward. But I'm still standing. And you're the one who lost everything. Nolan tilted his head. Did I? Or did I leave something behind? A little piece of me inside you. That whisper at night. That shadow you can't shake. You're not a ghost, she said coldly. You're a coward who hides behind tricks and trauma. He smiled again. Then shoot me. End it. Theo raised his gun, but Sofia put a hand on his arm. Not like this, she said. He wants us to be like him. He wants blood. But if we let him go, we won't, she said. Because I'm not afraid anymore. She turned back to Nolan. You want to be remembered? Fine. I'll remember. I'll remember everything. Every lie, every bruise, every kiss. And then I'll tell the world. Not just what you did, but how you did it. You'll become a textbook. A cautionary tale. A name parents used to scare their daughters into trusting no one. His smile faltered. Just for a second. That was enough. The agents, who had followed Sofia's GPS, stormed the quarry minutes later. Nolan was dragged away, screaming not in fury, but in silence, in disbelief. Because in the end, she hadn't destroyed him with bullets. She'd destroyed him with truth. Weeks passed. Her father was convicted. Nolan was sentenced to life without parole in a maximum security mental facility. And Sofia? She stood beside Theo, on the edge of a quiet cliff, watching the sun rise, her fingers laced with his. It started with a kiss, she said, but it ends with a choice. He looked at her. And what do you choose? She turned to him, smiling not with pain, not with fear, but with power. To live. And as the sun broke over the horizon, so did she into something new, something whole, something free.